The night was heavy with rain. Ravenshade City lay under a blanket of fog, its streets glistening with reflections of broken streetlights. In a quiet apartment on Hawthorne Avenue, Clara West stood motionless, her breath shallow, her trembling hands gripping the edge of a table. The shattered remains of a glass vase lay scattered across the floor, and beside it lay Daniel Harper. His lifeless eyes stared up at the ceiling, frozen in shock. Moments earlier, they had been shouting. Daniel had stormed into her apartment uninvited, furious over an old wound that hadn't healed. Harsh words turned into accusations. Accusations turned into shoves. And then Clara, in a moment she could never take back, had reached for the vase. The sound of it crashing against his skull still echoed in her ears. She stumbled backward, her hands shaking uncontrollably, staring at the pool of blood slowly spreading across the polished floor. "Oh God, no," she whispered, pacing frantically. "This can't be happening. This wasn't supposed to happen." Her mind raced. She could already hear the sirens in her imagination. The police. The headlines. Prison. No, she couldn't let that happen. Clara took several deep breaths, forcing herself to calm down. She wasn't going to prison. Not for this. She wiped her fingerprint from the vase, carefully gathering the broken pieces into a garbage bag. Then she staged the scene to look like a break-in, pulling drawers open, tossing clothes across the room, knocking over a chair. When she was done, the apartment no longer looked like a lover's quarrel. It looked like a robbery gone wrong. And then, in the dead of night, she slipped out of the apartment and walked through the pouring rain, carrying the garbage bag. She buried the broken vase beneath damp soil in a nearby park, far enough from her home that no one would connect her to it. By the time she returned to her apartment, drenched and exhausted, she had rehearsed the story in her head over and over again. It had to be flawless. The following morning, Ravenshade woke up to chaos. Local businessmen found murdered in his apartment. The news anchors reported. Daniel Harper, 32, died of blunt force trauma. Police suspect foul play. Clara sat at her kitchen table, sipping coffee with unnerving calmness. Outside, police cars lined the streets. Detectives questioned neighbors. Reporters circled like vultures. When the officers came to her door, she wore the perfect mask of shock and grief. "Daniel," she whispered, clutching her chest. I can't believe this. Who would do something like that?" Her performance was flawless, but she didn't stop there. Clara volunteered to help with the investigation. She joined the neighborhood search team, organized flyers, comforted Daniel's family, and gave interviews to the press. To everyone watching, she was a heartbroken woman seeking justice for a man she once loved. No one suspected a thing. No one, except Detective Marcus Hale. Hale was a man who had seen it all. Homicides, cold cases, criminals who thought they were smarter than everyone else. He'd built his career on reading people, and when he first spoke to Clara, something didn't sit right. "Ms. West," Hale began, flipping through his notes during their first interview. "You and Daniel were close, correct?" Clara nodded, her expression perfectly composed. "We dated for a while, yes, but we ended things months ago. I haven't spoken to him since." Hale studied her face carefully. Her tone was calm. Her eyes didn't flinch. For most, the murder of an ex-lover would bring tears, anger, confusion. But Clara gave him nothing. "Where were you the night of Daniel's death?" he asked. "At home," she said quickly. "I went to bed early. I didn't hear or see anything." Hale made a note, but his gut whispered a single word: liar. Days turned into weeks, and Clara became the face of the investigation. She stood beside reporters, comforting Daniel's grieving sister, and even addressed the community herself. "We can't rest until we find who did this," she said to a room full of volunteers. "Daniel deserves justice. Please, if anyone knows anything, speak up." The crowd nodded, moved by her words. But behind the mask of grief and determination, Clara was unraveling. Sleep eluded her. Every creak of the floorboards made her jump. Every siren in the distance sent her heart pounding. She told herself she was safe. She told herself she had covered every detail. But Detective Hale was watching her every move. One evening, Hale sat in his office, replaying surveillance footage from a small convenience store across from Clara's apartment. At exactly 11:47 p.m. on the night of Daniel's murder, there she was, Clara West, walking briskly through the rain, glancing nervously over her shoulder. She carried something in a large black garbage bag. Hale leaned back in his chair, a grim smile touching his lips. He didn't have her yet, but he would. He waited, biding his time, letting her feel safe. And then, during the next community meeting, Clara unknowingly walked straight into his trap. Standing before the volunteers, she suggested, "I think we need to search the park near Daniel's apartment. If the killer dumped anything, we might find it there." From the back of the room, Hale's sharp voice cut through the air. "That's an interesting suggestion. Ms. West, why the park? No one's mentioned it before." For a split second, Clara froze. It was subtle, but Hale saw it, the flicker of panic in her eyes, the way her throat tightened before she replied. I just thought it made sense," she said, forcing a calm smile. Hale said nothing. But the next morning, his team combed through the park. Behind a dense cluster of bushes, buried under damp earth, they found it, the shattered glass vase, blood-stained, cracked, and despite Clara's meticulous efforts, her fingerprints were still there. It was over. That night, there was a knock on Clara's door. She opened it to find Detective Hale standing there, flanked by 2 officers. The flashing red and blue lights outside illuminated the hallway. "Clara West," Hale said, his voice calm and steady, "you're under arrest for the murder of Daniel Harper." Clara's face drained to color. Her breath caught in her throat. No, please, you don't understand," she stammered, tears welling in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean to." Hale stepped closer, his gaze unyielding. "You played your part well, Clara," he said softly, "helping us search for a killer when the killer was you all along. But there's no such thing as a perfect crime." The cold steel of the handcuff closed around her wrists, and as she was led out into the rain-soaked streets under the flashing lights, one truth became painfully clear. Clara West was about to face the full wrath of the law. If you enjoyed this gripping story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next thrilling crime story.